I recently completed a large sanding project using the Bosch ROS20VSC random orbital sander. And in this video, I'm going to be giving my review. Coming up. What's going on, guys? Kendall here for Renos for Pros and Joes, helping you simplify the renovation and remodeling process. On this channel, we do renovation tip and strategy videos, as well as hands-on product tool and gear reviews like this one. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. Well, recently I completed a pretty extensive sanding project, and as part of that project, I had to use a random orbital sander. And I wanted to stop and give my review on the Bosch ROS20VSC random orbital sander, which is what I use for the project exclusively. So, a few things about this sander. Number one, it is economically priced. It's right around $60, sometimes it's $70. I believe there's a different version of this sander that is the ROS20VS, and I think that simply means that it doesn't come with the bag. I'm pretty sure. This version comes with a carrying bag, and I think back in the day, or maybe even still now, you may be able to get a different version that has a hard case if you care about stuff like that. So the sander came with this bag. The sander also came with, there's a sander there, this attachment on the back to be able to hook up to a vacuum. If you are going to be using a full-size shop vac style vacuum, you may need an adapter to enlarge the intake to make that happen. So in any case, how did I decide on this sander? Well, the first thing I did was look at what was on the market, and I was also looking very closely at price. And there's several sanders that are in this price point. This is not the first random orbital sander that I've purchased or used. So let me first say that. So one of the things that got my attention about this sander was the reviews that I read about the dust filtration system. And so that was the first thing that I noticed in comparing this one to the one that I still have but didn't choose to use on this project, is that this sander has a plastic filter case on the back of it. And that does several things better than the standard bag style that you find on most sanders. Number one, it does a much better job of catching the dust, so not a whole lot of dust escapes this sander, and that makes it a lot easier to work with because you don't have dust flying everywhere. I still wore a dust mask and goggles, but I didn't have nearly as much dust all over the place when I was using this. But the second thing that this type of sander dust filtration system does is it helps minimize fatigue in your hands because you don't have the additional resistance of feeling the flopping around of the dust bag and the contents of the dust, or the dust that's in the bag, moving around as you move the sander. You don't have as much of that, so that's less resistance when you're moving the sander around, which for me was a big deal and helped minimize fatigue. So let me quickly show you what this filter looks like, and mine's dusty enough because I've got dust and everything in it, but in any case, this is what the canister looks like. It pops on the back of this, and it has a rubber gasket here on the rear to help create a tight seal. Mine, as I said, mine's really filthy because it's filled with dust, but if you look here, it splits open into two parts, and you can see I've got dust just sitting in there. Just dump that out here. That's how I clean mine out. I just run my fingers real quickly across this filter and we're good to go. So this is what the filter looks like. It's a paper filter, but it works very, very well. And so you just do that when it fills up. Typically you know that it's filled up because you will see more dust escaping out the bottom of the sander pad, and that's how you know that it's ready to fill back up. So basically it just snaps back on here and you're ready to put it back on. And so you do that, and you kind of just twist it a little bit and you're good to go. This is a 5-inch sander. It has the toggle switch here to turn it on, and then it has 6 settings on here. I used it basically exclusively on level 6. The other thing that struck me about this sander is the weight of it. This sander is 3.5 pounds, which made it lighter than the majority of the other sanders that were at this price point in class, which was a big deal for me because I was sanding exposed wood beams on a 9-foot ceiling. So I was doing all of my sanding on a ladder and all of it was overhead. So that's why you can imagine that dust collection was a big concern for me, as well as just dust getting on my face and everything like that. And the weight piece of it was obviously an issue because all of my sanding was overhead, which is all shoulders and arm workout. So another thing that I wanted to mention about this sander is that it was very easy to hold. You do a lot of working and holding the sander here either with your palm or working it with your fingers, and either way was very easy to do. So if you've got medium to large size hand, it's very easy to basically palm this sander like this and hold it, or if you can kind of back up off of it and do a combination of the two, it's very easy to maneuver with just one hand and it doesn't beat your hands up too bad. The other thing is that it also has a rubber coating on it. It's hard to see it, but this is rubber here and there's also rubber down here. The bluish green part is actually plastic, but the black part is rubber, and that makes it very comfortable to hold this as well and easy to have a very good grip. I don't think I lost grip on this sander a single time when I was using it, so there was no drops or slips or not having to catch it by the cord, which was also a big thing since I was working on a ladder. Okay, so now for the cons. Very few cons for me with this sander. The one thing that I will say that it left me wanting for was probably a little bit more power. So I did have to kind of go over areas slowly, and I was running pretty much exclusively 60 grit sandpaper because I was sanding some very old beams with lacquer and stain on it. But I still got a very good and even finish and very, very, very minimal swirling in very few instances. And I sanded about 9 beams. Each beam was about 14 feet long. So that's a lot of sanding. And I didn't ever have to stop because of arm fatigue, believe it or not. And so to me, that was a very good indicator of how well balanced this tool was and how easy it is to work with. The other sander that I used, I'll just show you for comparison. Just for comparison's sake, I'm gonna hold this sander up next to my old sander, which is substantially larger. So as I said before, this is a 5-inch sander and this is a 6-inch. And I had to actually replace the pad on this one and glue it on there because the particular model is notorious for these pads coming off, but that's topic for a different video. But in any case, just in holding these two sanders in hand, my arm is flexed to hold this. I can feel it in my shoulder just holding it up like this. This sander is very light, okay? And granted, this is a sander that's designed to be used with 2 hands and has a larger motor, but ultimately this sander was easier to work with for the type of project that I was doing. So I'd say that if you're going to be doing a project where you're going to be exclusively sanding something that is a flat surface, that's large, like if you're sanding, large sheets of plywood and things like that, you may come out better going with a large 6-inch sander that's got 2 handles on it where you can kind of work it around and put it in the position that you want it to make sure that it's level and flat. But if you're doing more sanding where you've got to work with more corners and edges and things like that, you need to be able to kind of have more of an ability to be more graceful and finesse with the sander, then a sander like this is going to be more ideal for what you're looking for. So just keep in mind that there is a trade-off between your ability to work with it easily and having a lightweight sander versus having one that is going to be extremely powerful. Now, one other thing I wanted to keep in mind is that your sanding pad is also going to make a difference with how well your sander removes material. But keep in mind that you've got to have realistic expectations. I know some people use these sanders like planers, and that isn't necessarily realistic. It's really not realistic if you're going to be using this particular model of sander. But this one works very well. It did exactly what I needed it to do. The dust collection didn't fill up extremely quickly, and it did not leave dust everywhere. So overall, I was pleased. If I had to go back and do it again, I would buy this one again. Initially, I did look at potentially trying to get one that was a level above or a level or 2 above this one, but ultimately it just really didn't make sense for me financially. Additionally, in moving up in motor size and some additional features, I was also going to have to trade off for weight. And I can't even tell you how much heavier this sander is to hold it up above my head. It's a complete no-go. So in any case, hopefully you found this video informative. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I do have links to this particular sander in the description box below, and I'll also just include a link to this one as well, just for fun. So see you guys on the next one. Peace.